This confession belongs to a woman who spent years trying to mold her son for herself through manipulation and pressure. However, she made a crucial mistake when she seduced her son's friend. The consequences turned out to be devastating, and now my client has been left completely alone, discredited, and destitute. She still refuses to take responsibility for her actions, but agreed, on the condition that her identity remain anonymous, to publicly share her shocking story.
Call me Lucy. That was the name of my aunt, the one who taught me the rules of life. Just as she taught me, I used men. At first, unconsciously. Then, strategically. And later, simply out of habit. To me, they were tools. Wallets. Shoulders. Furniture you move when it's in the way. Especially my husband. He was the one I tied myself to not for love, but for convenience. I saw no point in pursuing an education, working, or breaking my back. If someone was willing to carry all the weight, why compete with the world? To be honest, I never really believed I owe anyone anything. Receiving always felt better, didn't it? I knew how to be liked. I knew when to stay silent, when to nod, when to laugh at a joke. That's how I met Tom. He was simple, hardworking, and kind. The kind you can wrap in warm promises and slowly teach that I'm nothing without you. The truth is, I needed him. But I never said that out loud. I liked how he worked, how he earned, how he picked up second or third jobs so we could rent a better apartment. I liked living without thinking too much about daily chores. I felt important, irreplaceable. I never cared about self-actualization. It was enough to know I could stay home and no one would question me. I did the housework superficially because I was tired from doing nothing. I drifted in that comfort like warm water. And for a long time, it felt like it would last forever. But convenience spoils. It corrupts more than scarcity. I started getting bored. Something predatory and destructive woke up inside me. I began to play with risk. I flirted. At first, small things, a joke, a glance, a touch of charm. Then one of those harmless flirtations turned into an invitation. I agreed. Not out of desire, not even affection, just boredom. I was sure I'd get away with it. I cheated on Tom, once, then again. Eventually, he found out simply because I didn't do a good job hiding the affair. Tom surprised me. I thought he'd shout, cry, throw a tantrum. I was ready to push back, break him, convince him my affair was his fault. But maybe I never really knew my husband. His reaction was surprisingly firm. I still remember that look. Not anger. Not even pain. He looked at me like he saw something he never wanted to know. He filed for divorce, and I couldn't stop him, no matter how I manipulated, screamed, or begged. Not even the fact that we had a small son named Alex could change his mind. I told Tom straight out that if he divorced me, I would do everything in my power to sever their bond, block their time together, and still squeeze every cent from him. In therapy, I've been told more than once that I treat everyone as a resource, even my own child. But really, can a man just walk out on his family when the mother is threatening to cut him off from his only son? Maybe I'm selfish, but Tom is to blame too. I think he acted heartlessly. So, Tom left, and I was left alone with a child clinging to my neck. Of course, I got most of his property and decent alimony in court, but in exchange, he secured his right to see Alex. I tried to convince the judge Tom was a bad father. I think I played the victim well, said he was cold, cruel, that he hit me, that he cheated too. I even managed to squeeze out tears. I knew how to invoke pity. I said Alex was anxious, and didn't want to go to his father. I made up stories about Tom coming home from work constantly on edge. Yes, I knew exactly what I was doing. But I believed I had the right. He was my son. My anchor. My project. But I couldn't erase Tom from his life. The judge didn't buy my stories. I still can't believe it. The judge was a woman, shouldn't that automatically mean she'd side with me? Anyway, I'm talking too much about Tom. That's not the point. I just want to explain how hard it was for me. His money was only enough for the basics now, and the child needed attention. Eventually, that's why I stopped getting in their way. And though I officially had full custody, Alex started spending half the week at his father's. That made it easier for me to look for a new man.
I must emphasize that this client persistently refuses to acknowledge her responsibility. She claims that the men in her life ruined it simply because they refused to comply with her expectations or adapt to her needs. Interestingly, she agreed to this confession for a rather peculiar reason. For her, it is not a way to ease the burden on her conscience or warn others in similar situations. Instead, she seeks public validation of her actions from a wide audience, believing she might find justification in their responses. As a professional, I try to avoid passing judgment, but I insist on personal accountability. That is the foundation for any progress toward change. Perhaps this confession, along with viewer reactions, will help her realize the importance of that step.
Alex was still a child back then. And I began to shape him. It was clear to me that my biggest mistake in the relationship with Tom was putting all my bets on him. I wouldn't be that foolish again. Sure, I could find another man, but what if he left me too? In that case, I had my son. If I raised him to believe that I was the main and only woman in his life, I could bind Alex to me irreversibly. He would be dependent on me and would become the kind of man I had always dreamed of. No, no. What are you thinking? Nothing perverse. I simply wanted a handsome young man by my side who would do whatever I wanted. Isn't that every woman's dream? Besides, I genuinely thought it would be good for Alex too, if he could be just a little closer to my expectations. I didn't want him to be like other boys. Not rough. Not cold. Not indifferent. I wanted him to always hear me, to consider my words, to support me, to be near. I knew I was turning him into a convenient man. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was his mother, yes, but I do agree with what the professor once said, that I was unconsciously treating my son like a partner, emotionally, ideologically, morally. He had to be my ideal. Because everyone else had failed me. And that was a problem. You see, I could never find a stable man. Maybe it was Alex's fault. Not every man is willing to accept a woman with someone else's child. Maybe it was my age. I mean, I wasn't getting any younger, and men only ever want one thing, usually from young girls. I looked great for my age, sure, but that clearly wasn't enough. I never considered myself cruel. I was a woman who had been deceived, humiliated, abandoned far too many times. And if I learned to survive, that's not my fault. That's just how the world is. If you don't grab what you want first, they'll tear you apart. That's why I believed I had the right to ask more from my son than other mothers. Because he owed me. At the very least, for the years I spent raising and feeding him. And the fact that he found a part-time job as a teenager? That was thanks to me. As were his successes in sports. It was precisely because I discouraged him from wrestling that he realized how much he truly loved it, toughened his character, and achieved success. Still, he never wanted to become a professional athlete. After Alex finished school, I gently but firmly dissuaded him from continuing his studies. He had a knack for drawing, and whispered something about illustration, comics, but I reminded him that an artist is just a homeless man with a paintbrush. Instead, I suggested he work at a car wash owned by one of my occasional lovers. It's not an easy job, but Alex is strong. And stability with a decent paycheck, isn't that exactly what a mother dreams of for her son? He resisted, of course, but eventually agreed. He couldn't really say no to me. At least, that's what I thought back then. I was wrong. It's hard for me to speak calmly now, knowing he was already sharpening a knife to stab me in the back. But still, I'll tell my story in order, alright?
I must emphasize that I am presenting my guest's confession exactly as she shared it with me, without any changes or edits. As a professional, I am obligated to maintain a level of detachment when it comes to her behavior, because she came to me seeking help. However, I feel compelled to state that I do not agree with her actions or her attitude toward others. Throughout therapy, I consistently emphasized that her behavior was unacceptable, not only because she used others for her own benefit, but also because she disregarded their feelings, desires, and dreams. Such a strategy inevitably leads to the collapse of one's social life, as this form of ruthless egocentrism, combined with a lack of empathy, slowly erodes even the closest relationships. My client has yet to fully grasp this reality, so perhaps your comments will help her see it more clearly. Feel free to share your experiences dealing with toxic egocentrism within your own family and express your thoughts about my guest in the comments below. That said, I understand she may encounter not only helpful and constructive feedback, but also hate. To minimize those risks, I want to highlight the anonymity and safety measures I implement for all such public confessions. To protect anonymity, the images and voices have been altered using advanced technology. This has made it possible to share my guest's deeply personal and morally complex story in full detail with a wide audience, without fear of revealing their identity. It allows for honest feedback from viewers, which may help ease the burden on my guest's heart and provide advice from a large number of objectively minded individuals. Names, locations, and some details have been changed for privacy reasons. Any similarities are purely coincidental. The story is presented as a work of fiction, even if it is based on real events or emotions.
What made me even angrier was when Alex started dating girls and made new friends. He had a group of friends in school too, but I didn't pay them much attention. They were just kids, who cares what they like or what they talk about? Besides, his school friends never interfered with my plans. They tried to convince him to go to college and study art, just like he'd always wanted. But my words, that I wouldn't give him any money for that, were enough to cool their enthusiasm. After graduation, his friends went their separate ways. Are they still in touch? I don't know. And does it even matter? It has nothing to do with me. But the boys and girls in Alex's new crowd, that was different. That was a problem. Especially the girls. My 18-year-old son is a handsome, athletic guy. On top of that, he draws, and I know very well that once an artist picks up a pencil or charcoal, even the most untouchable beauty ends up naked in seconds. I've seen Titanic too. Strangely enough, the biggest threat didn't come from another girl, but from Alex's new friend. A boy named Sam suddenly appeared in his life, another 18-year-old who had just moved to our neighborhood with his parents from. I can't remember where, and does it even matter? Sam felt out of place in a new environment and was looking for friends. Alex. I admit, he was probably lonely too, so the two of them hit it off. Sam worked in his family's business, so he too had to give up on college against his will. That brought them closer, and soon Sam became my son's best friend. At first, I didn't pay much mind. One of my lovers had just dumped me, and I was shattered. I couldn't think about anything else. How could that pig dare reject me? He was over 50, bald, with those ridiculous freckles. And me? I was the best thing that ever happened to him. Anyway, I got sidetracked. But I won't apologize for it, you need to know what I was going through at the time. So, it was from this Sam that I took the first blow. That insolent brat dared to tell Alex, right in front of me, that he didn't have to support me. Alex had just started working, he was exhausted and waiting for his first paycheck like a reward for all his efforts. I reminded him he was supposed to give it to me, and then Sam suddenly had the nerve to contradict me. Ever since my son turned 18, I've had to beg for money from lovers. What business did that little twerp have interfering? I almost exploded at Sam's comment, but he acted like he'd said nothing unusual. I had to hold myself back so that Alex wouldn't see how I truly felt. He mustn't think I'm greedy. Aside from that incident, Sam was always polite and respectful. He smiled at me gently, and I couldn't help noticing he was an attractive young man. I felt that he cared about how I looked. He never flirts openly, but his glances, his voice when he spoke to me, there was something more there. In therapy, they keep insisting I imagined it, but I'm sure he liked me. Especially since the side effects of my botched cosmetic procedures hadn't shown yet. And I liked the attention. Of course, I didn't drag the boy into bed. I mean, I didn't do it right away or directly. At first, it was almost playful. I invited him to stay for dinner, lightly touched his hand while offering tea, held his gaze a little longer than necessary. And I could see, he didn't respond, but he didn't back away either. I didn't plan anything serious. I just wanted to feel that I could still seduce a young guy. That I could still be desired. One evening, Alex stayed out late at some party. I think they were celebrating his first paycheck. I had no doubt I could pressure him into handing it over. He came home in a taxi with Sam. Both were drunk, but Alex could barely stand, while Sam still spoke clearly enough. He helped me carry my nearly unconscious son to bed, and then we went down to the living room. His eyes sparkled, and he looked so relaxed, so attractive. I realized it was my chance, and I kissed him like a grown woman. What followed was a real hurricane. I was the more active one, but Sam did everything I expected of him. We did it right there on the living room couch, and then on the floor. I didn't know where my actions would lead, but I was fine with any outcome. Or so I thought, because I couldn't even imagine what would actually happen. At the time, I believed that Sam would either become my young lover or that our affair would drive a wedge between him and Alex. After all, it's hard to stay friends with a guy who sleeps with your mom, right? But reality hit me hard, as always, and the consequences turned out to be completely unexpected.
The continuation of this story will be featured in the second part. Lucy escalates her manipulations to a new level, but her son unexpectedly finds a way to break free from her control and turns the entire situation in his favor. The way this young man skillfully restores justice is a hopeful sign and suggests that he will be able to build a happy life without his toxic mother, but with truly close and supportive people instead. Please like this video if it resonated with you emotionally, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'll publish the continuation of this story the day after the first part, and I'll link the two together to make it easier for you to follow. Subscribing will also give you immediate access to other anonymous yet public confessions that some of my clients have agreed to share, in hopes of easing their conscience, finding answers, or simply sharing their experience.